Hello and welcome to the Voice of TOD. I'm Tom, and in this video I'm going to give you my thoughts on Fear Street Part 1, 1994, the 2021 movie, and first part in a trilogy of horror movies coming to Netflix over the next few weeks. But first, in these movies I don't do spoilers, so you're safe to watch this before you watch the movie if you want. If not, it's on Netflix right now. Please do come back and finish with this video though. If you enjoy it, you don't have to. But let's get into the boring part first. The film is directed by Lee Janik, I think it is, of Honeymoon fame, and is written by Kyle Killen of Lone Star, Awake, and the upcoming Halo TV series, and Phil Graziadei of Honeymoon. It's based on the novel series by R.L. Stine. The movie stars Kiana Madeira as Dina, Olivia Scott Welch as Samantha, Benjamin Flores Jr. as Josh, Julia Rehwald, I think, as Kate, and Ashley Zuckerman as Sheriff Nick Good. Maya Hawke is also in this in a minor role, and as she's the only actor I recognised in the whole movie, it was quite a bit refreshing actually to not know anybody and not have any expectations. If Chris Pratt hadn't have been in the Tomorrow War, I probably wouldn't have expected so much from it. Just put it that way. The synopsis from IMDb is: a circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter the ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders that have plagued their town for over 300 years. Welcome to Shady Side. They're already setting up that trilogy vibe, aren't they? But with the admin out of the way, let's just dive into what I thought. Now, I don't know the book series, and 99% of the cast was all foreign to me. So, I went into this with no expectations. I do remember some of the Goosebumps books, and working on that basis, I was kind of expecting a teen horror flick, more so than a true horror movie, and that was bang on the money. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because despite this being a 15, I think Part 1 does a good enough job of riding the line between what you can get away with and what you can't for that bracket in a horror film. The effects were pretty good. Personally, I would have liked a little bit more blood, but we're dealing with a 15, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. First thing that really stood out to me was the soundtrack. This is set in 1994, so there's a lot of music in here that was in the background of my childhood. You've got some amazing artists like Iron Maiden, Cypress Hill, Radiohead, Prodigy, and many, many more. The sound editing is really good too. A lot of the songs are only used in quick snippets, and the editing was really tight from what we saw on screen, and it was just like a perfect fit. I think the highlight of the movie for me is the soundtrack and the sound editing. The killers, because there are more than one, they all fit into the different horror types from over the decades that this film is trying to make you think of as well. From Ghostface in Scream to Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It covers all kinds of things with the past of this town that we're being thrown into. And I'm sure that many more horror aficionados will have a little bit of fun with the nods to movies that they make you think of here. And honestly, I can't fault the cast. There isn't really a standout for me, but each character worked with the trope that they were set to fill for this story. It's a teen horror after all, and it plays into the standard 90s horror tropes set up in such epics as Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's even a little bit of Blair Witch in here. And with a nod to their greatness and a bucket load of nostalgia, this really does go for that 90s vibe, and it works. Despite this being set in the 90s, it tries very hard to be as inclusive as possible, and I'm sure people will argue that this is the Hollywood woke agenda. If that stuff gets to you, maybe avoid this series, but it didn't ruin the movie for me anyway. It was just an element in the script, in the story that they're trying to tell. Shoehorned or otherwise, I can't say. I don't know the source material. But it's in there. If that's going to bug you, don't watch it. Overall, I think this is a pretty good Part 1. It sets up the trilogy nicely, and it kind of gives you a hint of what's to come with the next two films. It does lean into a lot of the history of horror in the town, and it really pulls you in so that you want to come back for parts 2 and 3. And if you spend nearly 2 hours watching this, you probably, or if you're like me, you're going to have to really have had a bad time to not be interested in seeing what comes next. If I start a series It has to be really bad for me to not finish it at the very least, even if I hate it come the third part. But Fear Street 1994 doesn't do anything new for the genre, probably as expected, but from my point of view, it does exactly what it set out to do. And that's probably a good thing, because I didn't know the cast, and I never really was 100% certain who was going to survive for the next film. Don't get me wrong, if you want a true horror movie, this isn't it. But if you're looking for a slasher light, then this fits the bill nicely. I'd probably go a little further and say it's baby's first horror movie, which sounds a little harsh, but I can imagine me age 9 or 10 watching this late one night and thinking it was amazing. I went into this with no expectations, and came away having enjoyed it, and you can't really ask for much more than that. I will be reviewing Fear Street Part 2, which is 1978, which will probably drop over the next week, and we'll round this little series out with Fear Street Part 3, which is set in 1666. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe to the Voice of TOD for more movie and game news, reviews, and check out Todd Plays Games, the home of all my Let's Play content. If you want to know when I'm going live or when a new video hits, hit the bell or follow me on Twitter for the latest updates. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.